Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 45 of the Capitalist Corner. I am your host, Mark Pellegrino, and also the chairman of the American Capitalist Party, along with my co-chair and co-host, Michael Liebowitz. He is also the host of his own show, The Rational Egoist, which I remind you on a daily basis you should be listening to. You should be spreading it to your friends, because doing so is a community service. We don't talk a lot about community service here on the Capitalist Corner, even though that is an aspect of being free, right? Willfully and voluntarily helping your neighbor. And this I consider an act of service to your friends, since it will make them smarter. It will attune them to the issues that are most important in life. And most of all, it'll give them the tools to win, because we do have to win. We are in a battle for our existential existence, folks. Liberty is not more than one generation away from being extinct. And a guy like Michael Liebowitz is helping us keep liberty here. Michael, anything to say about the Rational Egoist that we should be...
There's an episode out now that has to do with the myth of personal maintenance, that, it's about how we either go forward or backward. I don't agree with everything that the guest said, but I do think there's a lot of value there. So I would suggest people listen. And probably tomorrow I'll be releasing an interview I did with Torre, who formerly wrote for Rolling Stone magazine. He had a show on MSNBC, and he's also on the committee for inductions into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So it was a very good interview. We addressed race, the war on drugs, hip hop culture. Really good interview.
Awesome. Yeah, I have a tendency to believe in general that, it's not about maintenance. Everything, we are either moving forward or backwards. I'd like to get into the particulars by watching The Rational Egoist and see exactly where it is you differ. But for me, folks, life is about moving forward and keeping yourself derusted, as they say, so that you can keep moving forward. So, you hear us talk a lot about ethics, a lot about principles, a lot about ideals here on the Capitalist Corner. This is something that has become foreign to most people. It's become foreign to politicians who have thrown principles aside for pragmatism and populism. It's become foreign to people who even talk about capitalism. Most people don't talk about capitalism as if it's a principled orientation towards life, or as if it's morally grounded. And yet all of civilization is morally grounded, and capitalism is morally grounded in a particular kind of ethics. And if you've noticed lately on social media over the past 5 or 6 or 7 years, a deterioration in civility. You'll notice also an increase in something that I've been talking about recently, which is the deliverance of our moral agency over to others. It seems that it's more and more popular now to deliver moral agency to the government, to assume that this paternalistic government is going to take care of us and that it by right should. It's no mistake that the deliverance of this moral agency over to the other is taking place simultaneously with a loss of civility. And there's this great article in Daily Economy about this very thing. And Michael sent it to me along with some tweets that were awful. We could get into some of the tweets. I want to get into the thrust of I want to read the article actually to everybody, because this person could be an objectivist. They're saying it in their own way. So I'm assuming if they have read objectivism, they've fully digested the principles and they've made them their own, and they're saying them in their own way. And I think they're valid enough to be stated here today. And I think it simply supports our position that capitalism is the only moral system out there in the world, and the only one conducive to civil behavior.
Hey, Mark, let me tell you something interesting before you start, right?
Yeah.
I began sending you, because this morning I was going through X. I was up, 4 o'clock, and I was just going through X, and I was coming across just disgusting things that people were saying. And I by no means sent you all of it. And I'm really big into civility. Not that I never fall into being uncivil when, repeatedly attacked. I do. I wish I didn't, but sometimes I slip. But I'm generally a civil person in my discourse, and I think it's important. So I was sending you all of these things that were demonstrations of rude incivility, racism, homophobia, anti-Semitism. And after I sent you all that stuff, because I did that while I was drinking my coffee, I wasn't fully alert yet. So I don't like to start reading articles until I'm fully up. So after I sent you the stuff, I went through my daily where I find my articles, the various sources. And I came across that and I thought, wow, that's excellent. What an excellent means to analyze the exact stuff that I had already sent you.
Indeed, and just highlighting the prescience of our founding fathers. There's going to be a couple of quotes here from our founding fathers, which have been misconstrued by the conservatives to be the North Star for advocation of Christianity, but that's not the case. But I want to get into this article and read it to you guys and talk about it, maybe paragraph by paragraph. And if you guys comment in the comment section or have anything to say or questions with respect to the article, please make your comments known, especially after you hit the like button. It's very important that you hit.
Yes, the like button, hit it.
We like it when you do that, and the algorithm likes it when you do that. So the title of this article is called "The Steep Price of Declining Civility," and it starts out. It's basically a commentary on a book by Alexandra Hudson's "The Soul of Civility." This might be something you want to order on Amazon because the article makes it interesting enough for me to want to buy this book. I think you probably should too. It reminds us that our everyday moral habits shape not just personal character, but the very health of civilization. Now, this is a very important phenomenon that he's going to get into later on, and it melds perfectly with capitalist ethics. So civilization is fragile, the article begins. Countless social and commercial interactions build civilization. In one of his most essential essays, Individualism, True and False, F.A. Hayek warns, while it may not be difficult to destroy the spontaneous formations which are the indispensable basis of a free civilization, it may be beyond our power deliberately to reconstruct such a civilization once those foundations are destroyed. Today, an alarming number of people see a collapse as a good thing. Some deeply pessimistic brokenists view our institutions as beyond repair, making a restart preferable. Some radical activists desire the collapse of Western civilization entirely. Hayek might say, be careful of what you wish for. Few will escape the carnage that a collapse in civilization would bring. If you are concerned about Hayek's warning, then Alexandra Hudson's superb book, The Soul of Civility, is part of the educational corrective. Now, I write educational corrective because Hudson would argue that if our institutions are failing, it's because we are making bad moral choices. We can and must do better, not only for ourselves, but for the sake of humanity. Hudson writes, quote, we can't change society, but we can change ourselves and how we operate in the world around us. And if enough of us decide to change ourselves, we might be able to change the world we live in too. This is not a call to elect better leaders or align with tribal identity. I think I just want to stop here for a minute and get your thoughts on that, because this is straight up capitalist thinking. This is straight up rational egoism. This is straight up in an individual rights society, in an individualistic oriented society. What do you say about that, man?
So in our society, it seems like we often go on a pendulum from one bad extreme to the other, right? So we went to the umpteenth degree with cancel culture and wokeism and all that stuff. And, it seems that has been largely defeated, but it's opened the door now to where people think it's cool to be uncivil, to call people names and to use terms that are gross. And if you object to these things, people say, oh, you're a snowflake, or take your woke somewhere else, that sort of thing. And from my perspective, it's silly, because anybody that knows me knows that I don't take offense. You can break my balls all day long. I'm fine with it. But that doesn't, that to me is done amongst friends, right? People you don't go online and just start randomly insulting people. It's gross. It's disgusting. But that is becoming the norm. You cannot have a free society where there's no morality, where there's no civility. What you have, if you have, even if the government's there to protect rights, if people are just being uncivil to each other and rude to one another and irrational and immoral, it's going to break down, right? Eventually, there's going to be some people that are going to say, no, the government needs to step in and fix this.
which
You
is
simply
which is
cannot thrive that way.
which is in fact what they are trying to do now. They're trying to legislate civility now. The left tried to do it with woke culture. They tried to acculturate it through woke culture, which was its own kind of warfare. And the right is trying to do it by actual legislation to prevent people from being bad or saying bad things or saying offensive things to people. This is the beginning of the end, folks. When you need a paternalistic government to oversee everything that you do because you've given so much of your moral agency away, you don't know what moral agency is anymore. That is the beginning of the end of civilization.
Well, I got a challenge for the audience here.
Yeah.
So Jim Valiant says in his comment, civility is accomplished on purpose, with all due respect to Hayek. How many people in the audience know what Jim is referring to? If you do, just chime in and say yes. Go ahead, Mark.
All right, I'll continue with the article and we'll see if people chime in. Civility, Hudson informs us, is the basic respect we are owed by virtue of our shared dignity and equal moral worth as human beings. She continues, we owe this to others regardless of who they are. I disagree with that. But I think civility should be the default position that you with strangers out of respect for the sovereignty of human life, right? That's a default position, but it's not, it has to be earned at a certain point too. There's a point at which somebody does not necessarily deserve civility. And we can talk about that point here too. We owe this to others regardless of who they are and what they look like. Well, that's true. Where they are from, that's also true. Whether or not we like them, true. And whether or not they can do anything for us, that's true. Drawing off the work of philosopher Martin Buber, Hudson argues, hold on, let me turn this down. Hudson argues we must consciously battle the perennial temptation to see the world and others exclusively through the lens of our own experiences and advancement. This is where the article goes a little south for me, but we instrumentalize people when it suits us and are quick to appear to be kind and generous when we have something to gain. Now, that certainly describes Hollywood culture, but I don't know that this is necessarily putting your finger exactly on the problem. I think literally civility is disappearing because we're giving away moral agency and we're dividing into tribes that have interests and we're trying to get, daddy to appease those interests. It has less to do with seeking advancement in the sense that that this person seems to be implying. What do you think?
I think that Jim Valiant stepped in here and said, Mike, we need to do a show on Hayek. And my first response in my mind was, Jim, we did. And then Akira Felix stepped in and said, James Valiant, you did. It was a while ago. As far as what you're reading, I think that a lot of times, and this is what happens with people with mixed premises and mixed principles, right? Because you end up saying things like, we use people, and it's complex because all relationships that I'm in them because they benefit me, right? But that doesn't mean you use people and manipulate people. So I think that it has to do with the very flawed idea of what constitutes self-interest is at the root of the concern that's expressed there. Because I seriously doubt that the author of the article, the author of the book, or Martin Buber were out there engaging in relationships that were detrimental to them on purpose. I mean, I guess some people do, but most people want to have fulfilling relationships that, redound to their benefit. So I think that that's the problem. And I think that that's why it kind of chided against you because it's a very flawed statement. And this happens often when you read stuff. It's very, very good for the most part, but the flawed premises seep in and wreck it. Martin Buber, I believe, and Jim Valiant, I'll give him a chance to redeem himself, can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Martin Buber was a German neo-Kantian. Not 100%, but about 95% sure. So in Kantianism, their view of a person as an end in himself is like it's like a duty thing where, everybody has a duty to treat people this way. And it's not sort of the teleological ethics that we're into.
Well, it's good to talk about these contradictions because those are the fissures, the cracks through which the bad folks exploit to create chaos And so it's important for us to point out, what rational self-interest is and how it differs from the rest of the world's perspective of that. Hudson provides simple guidelines, and this, I think, was very good, if I remember the quote. Moral habits that promote human flourishing are virtues. I think that's very true.
Sure.
Moral habits that divide us within ourselves and between us and others are vices. Now, I mean, that's a generalized statement we could find a lot of problems with, but generally moral habits that act against the interests of your life and are against the interests of other people's lives are not really good. They are detrimental, and those are vices. Vices. How would you define vices, Michael?
Well, you're putting me on the spot, but as a shorthand, I'd say that vices are behaviors that people engage in thinking that they're acting in their own interest, when in actuality they're acting to their own detriment. You can think of using drugs or alcohol, and I'm talking about to extremes, not someone who smokes a joint on the weekend. I'm saying people that are abusing themselves, somebody who overindulges in food or television, or really anything that's harming themselves out of a sense that they're actually benefiting themselves. And these are the people, by the way, that are often called selfish, right? That person's selfish. Look at how he or she behaves. That is the behavior that I think of when I think of vice. It's things that are, and by the way, criminals often are people that have a very skewed or fool's notion, of self-interest, right? Criminals are trying to act in their own interest, but in reality, just completely wrecking their lives. I mean, of course, they're wrecking other people's lives as well. But my point in this is that they're actually acting contrary to what they think that they're doing. And I think that's what vice is.
Yeah, I would say vice is a short-term pleasure that undoes your long-term gains, and virtues are sort of the opposite. They're constantly working for your long-term values. As human beings, folks, we have to consider the whole context of our lives when we're doing actions, and that's a difficult thing to do. It's not easy. We're prone to error, and we have to constantly change and be flexible and understand that this prone to error means that we have to constantly reevaluate our premises to make sure we're on the right track in the long term. And that's a difficult thing to do. And I think that's one of the reasons why people are giving over their moral agency to someone else, because it requires a lot of thought, a lot of introspection, and a lot of work. Being a monk isn't hard. Just divorcing yourself from the world isn't hard. Engaging with the world and being a virtuous human being in the world, meaning acting for your long-term self-interest, that's hard, because that requires a lot of work and a lot of thought. So Hudson explains that civility is not the same as politeness, and a cultivated personality is not the same as character. She encourages us to stand for timeless principles even when others strongly disagree. She argues that virtue cannot be legislated as we become more virtuous, enlivened in us in the moral sentiment that by birthright every human being is equal to others. So I like the idea that, you're civil because you are respecting the individual sovereignty of each human being, that we're all equal before the laws of nature and the laws of men, and that we all have, the rational faculty that needs to be appealed to. And that is what your default position should be with everybody. She goes on to quote some pretty interesting people here. Hudson's mission to inspire virtue to save liberty, many thinkers influenced her, including Ben Franklin, who warned only virtuous people are capable of freedom. As nations become corrupt and vicious, they have more need of masters. That's prescient.
Yes, very.
And we see this happening today. We see people seeking the strong man to right the ship of state, and by righting the ship of state, right the conscience and spirit of Americans again. That's not the way it's going to happen, folks. It's going to happen by a lot of self-work and understanding what virtues in fact are and how they work for you as an individual. Capitalism promotes that, folks. Capitalism promotes virtuous behavior, in spite of what the Marxists have tried to claim, that it promotes all kinds of criminal activity and oligarchies and monopolies that take advantage of people and exploit labor. It actually promotes virtue, and we can talk about that a little bit later. She also quotes Edmund Burke, who wrote, "Men are qualified for civil liberty in the exact proportion to their disposition to put moral chains upon their own appetites. Now, that's an interesting way of putting it. I don't necessarily, I don't like necessarily the way that's phrased, but it's an interesting way of putting it, because I've always thought of freedom as a kind of restraint. It's a restraint of force, not just, restraining government, delegating the force to the government. We restrain force for a reason. That civility is the mitigation of violence and force in the world, don't you think? And this seems to be the essence of what Edmund Burke is saying.
The way that you put it, I don't like. Sorry, Mark, but
no, go ahead.
Because it implies to me that force is sort of the default position that we have to restrain in order to get along. Now, I think we do need to restrain force in order to be free. Don't get me wrong. I mean, because there are people out there that will engage in force and initiate violence and all sorts of things. I don't like the idea of having that sort of as the default. I think that the natural, how do I put this? Naturally, I don't have restraints on me other than those in nature. You know what I mean? Obviously, my own limitations, capabilities, but human beings can step in and put restraints on me. I just don't think that it's the natural state of things.
Well, I think the restraint, what I mean by that is that you agree to restrain yourself to civility, to persuasion, to rules of a society that subordinates force to reason. So you're trying to promote reason, and so you restrain. He's saying their appetites. I don't consider an appetite for violence to be the norm as well. I don't think we're animals in that sense. But certainly, it's a freedom. Liberty is an act of restraining force.
Well, even think about what you just said when you say civility is restraining yourself. The implication is that my natural tendency would be to use force. I think that Ayn Rand is largely correct. I think at birth, in terms of our conceptual faculty, in terms of our morality, we're blank slates. We're neither good nor bad, right? We, through a tremendous, contributions from genetics, from the environment, and importantly, from our free will, our own volition, we become who we are and we shape who we are. I don't think that the scale is weighted in either direction as far as being civil or uncivil. Now, obviously, like the wild boy of, I think It's Hard. I can't remember exactly that wild boy of Avion, something like that. This was somebody that just grew up in the woods with no teaching, and he was an absolute savage. So that may go kind of against what I'm saying, but that's also not the normal way that people develop. And I just don't think that we have a desire necessarily to harm or to be evil. I think we do have to learn to be good. And if that's what you're saying, I agree. If I sound mixed up, I'm kind of thinking through this as we're talking. But I do think I don't think that we have a natural tendency toward incivility, because incivility, ultimately, you can't be either civil or uncivil until you have a degree of learning, right? Like, you don't say a baby, for instance, is being uncivil, or a chimpanzee, or even a dog is acting uncivil. It refers to people that already have the requisite learning in order to be so. And so I just don't like the framing in the way that you put it. Not that it's the end of the world. I'm pedantic, I know, and I can be quite the dick at times. But,
no. Thank you. It gives me something to think about, and words matter, concepts matter. Akira Felix says that Michael is becoming a philosopher in real time. So we're watching thoughts develop and philosophy sink in and integrate as we speak for both of us. Like Franklin, Burke saw that if the controlling power is not found within individuals, it will be found without, in the hands of authoritarians. I think this is precisely the type of society we're seeing happening before our very eyes. As I said before, people are giving up their moral agency to institutions that they would rather have make choices for them and take care of them, as opposed to understanding that you live in nature and nature demands that you take care of yourself. And as we're rational, nature demands that we take care of ourselves as rational beings. Hudson shares that American jurist Learned Hand wrote in the 20th century, liberty lies in the hearts of men and women. When it dies there, no constitution, no law, no court can save it. No constitution, no law, no court can even do much to help it. And this is what we're seeing today as well with the overwhelming amount of populism on the right. The right, which was supposed to stand for constitutional conservatism, the preservation of originalism, which is another article you sent me, we now see them resisting this stuff in favor of authoritarianism and rule by edict. So, I mean, this is happening as we speak. Trump putting down the Federalist Society and actually calling the person he advised for advice on jurists, calling him a bad person. And he's a bad person because he recommended judges who stick to the Constitution. And not Trump's word.
First of all, I just posted the article on civility. I posted it to X, and I'm in the process of posting the article that you're referencing now. I'm posting that to X. But Trump ultimately, like, people say he's a pragmatist, but I don't even know if that's accurate. I mean, it is in a sense, but really what he is a criminal. It's how criminals think, right? A criminal thinks that everybody has to respect his rights or her rights, but they don't have to respect anybody else's rights. Whatever anybody does, if it's helpful or I like it, that person's good. Whatever somebody does that I don't like, that person's bad. And it seems that that's what Trump does. He's not going by a metric, say the Constitution, and saying, okay, are these laws that I'm supporting in favor with this? Or are these decisions the courts are making in line with this? He's saying they don't like me. And recently somebody asked him, would you consider pardoning P. Diddy? And Trump said, he gave a quick answer. And then he said, he used to like me.
Did he actually say that?
Yeah, it went right to whether the guy likes him. He said, we used to get along, but then when I got into politics, you know how that goes. Like, it was insane. But that's how he talks, and that's how he thinks. It's all in terms of who is for him or against him, regardless of how good or bad he is or his positions are.
Yeah, which not to get into that article yet about his now war with the Federalists, but he's attempting to appoint a jurist who will do the MAGA thing, who will do his bidding irrespective of what the Constitution says. Hopefully that guy does not get confirmed. Trump, good, you TDS average magatard. Trump, could you? I got to tell you, I have a real issue with Trump derangement syndrome on the right. It's a willful stupidity. I have a friend. I love him. I've known him for 40 years. He lives in Colorado. He's about to move out of Colorado because it's turning too blue for him. But when I talk to him about Trump, it's like talking to a 3-year-old. He suddenly just loses all his IQ points and rationalizes away some very bad stuff that is coming down the pike, as they seem to be doing all throughout Fox News. If you've noticed, if you care to watch Fox News, they have been making excuse after excuse after excuse for Trump's policies, and they're actually misreporting the economic fails that are actually happening right now. This goes on. A Perfect Day is a hauntingly beautiful film by Wim Wenders, depicts the life of a Tokyo street toilet cleaner. The baseline level of cleanliness in Japanese public restrooms and streets is unimaginable in U.S. cities. Law does not mandate this individual's attention to cleanliness. It's a demonstration of respect for others. Well, also a demonstration of respect for yourself. I would say that it's definitely a different culture in Japan. I wouldn't consider it rationally self-interested, but I think the same results would happen in a rationally self-interested, individualistic society, as they're putting on the Japanese society, which is clearly not individualistic in nature.
We got a comment I want to address real quickly. So RW says, regarding P. Diddy, he, meaning Trump, also said it doesn't matter if Diddy likes him. It only matters if he had an unfair trial. And then RW goes, just to be fair and accurate. The problem is it shouldn't come up at all. You're asking this guy if somebody's going to get a pardon. Your personal relationship and whether the guy likes you is not relevant at all. even if at the end he says it doesn't matter if he likes me, why are you even talking about this? What difference does it make?
That's just Trump's circular talking. So he gets around to something at the very end, but he reveals often first what's really going on in his mind before the political answer comes up at the end. Which is what really matters is if the trial is fair, is if the evidence is real and he's convicted because he actually has done the things he's done. That's what matters. But what Trump is really thinking is the first thing that pops out of his head, which is he likes me. If he likes me, I might consider it. Recently at a Philadelphia bar, some young people danced and looked and took selfies to a sign saying, basically, "Fuck the Jews." One of the students involved claimed it was just an edgy joke. Government can't legislate thought, said Congressman Thomas Massey when he voted against a bill condemning anti-Semitism a few years ago. That's a very it's perfectly consistent perspective. Massey's right, but he is making Hudson's point. If you want to live in a society where anti-Semitism has been normalized, don't expect to escape the consequences. Obedience to the unenforceable is a concept introduced by John Fletcher Moulton, a 19th century English mathematician and judge. Moulton and Hudson agree. This obedience is where the real greatness of a nation, it's the real greatness of a nation, its true civilization. Hudson adds, the more society relies on self-regulation and the less it relies on law, coercion, conflict, and litigation, the freer it is. That seems perfectly rational to me. I agree with that. This is the society we strive for as capitalists, folks. It's one in which you regulate yourselves, in which you take full responsibility for your own life. You are your own moral agent. Remember that. That's the basis of capitalism. It's not just this, concept of private ownership of the means of production and all the, the things that people say that are in fact true.
Okay, Mark, hold on.
Based on a moral concept. A moral concept that we can all wrap our mind.
I want you to elaborate a little, because the last time I posted a clip of you saying that on TikTok, they all came in, no, capitalism is literally about the means of production. So when you say capitalism is about more than just economics, what do you mean by that?
I mean, it's grounded upon a moral concept that the individual is an end unto himself, that you and the values you pursue are ends unto themselves, that you are not the means to another's end, and that the only way that you can exchange with others is in the principle of trade. You exchange in a value for value, win-win relationship with other people. That's it. That you are under no obligations or you are under no moral duties. That the other isn't more important than you. That you are equally important in your own eyes. Everybody understands that they are equally important in their own eyes. That their values are primary. And so a society that says that capitalism is the private ownership of the means of production just means that your means of survival, your means of life are yours entirely, because you are an end unto yourself, and that you exchange with other people freely because they also own the means of production. They are their own means of production. Even if you're a wage earner, you're your means of production. You own that stuff, and you can exchange with people through that. So does that make it clear?
Yeah, Zachary David, I don't know, he's new to the show here, says that's total bullshit. Okay, Zachary, why not, instead of just throwing out something like that, tell us why you disagree? Maybe we can have a discussion about it rather than just flinging stuff. You know what I mean? So, Zachary, what do you mean by that's total bullshit?
Yeah, civility would say, Zachary, the proper way to ask that question is, I completely disagree. It's not that's total bullshit. I completely disagree. And then you come up with your reasons for why, and then we attempt to persuade one another, because one of us is right, Zachary, either you or us. And let's hear what you have to say for real, instead of that stuff.
Yes.
Look, she makes a point that a free society depends on its citizens deciding to do the honorable and virtuous actions, even when they have the opportunity not to do so. Hudson wants us to consider our willingness to be obedient to unenforceable virtues, and I think it's a fairly good concept. I don't know that I would necessarily formulate it in that way, but it's good. On a good day, if you stay off social media and the news, you may never have cause to think about the ideas in Hudson's book. On a good day, your life works pretty well. You have electricity at your fingertips, food on the table, and people who love and care for you. It's unlikely you'll ever visit that Philadelphia bar. Our character is tested not by our good days and calm seas of economic prosperity and social cohesion, but by challenging economic times and times when the bonds of civil society are frayed. Hudson's book is a preventative medicine. I like that. I mean, it's true. The true test of your virtuous behavior is often in times like that. Do you agree with that? I mean, I think every day personally is a test. I don't have to be put in the crucible of horrible circumstances to know whether or not I'm virtuous. Every day, I can act for my life or against my life, and measure myself according to my individualistic standards, and know whether I'm corrupting myself or growing. What do you think?
I do think that tough times are a test. I mean, it's easy to do what's right when you're getting praise from everybody, and everybody likes you and pats you on the back, and you're getting rewarded. It's not so easy when you're Martin Luther King walking through southern streets and people are throwing cinder blocks at your head, right? I mean, say what you want about MLK and his, peaceful protesting, his pacifism, but he lived it, right? He's literally walking and people are throwing things at him that could knock him out, partially, perhaps kill him. And he's doing it. It's difficult to hold to principles when you're facing that. That said,
Indeed, and in a very small way, not to compare myself to Martin Luther King by any stretch of the imagination, because he went into the den of wolves, and he fought them personally, with peace and with concepts, high, elevated concepts, I might add. But it's not popular to think in terms of liberty today. It's not popular to dislike collectivism today. It's not popular in Hollywood, especially, which is my chosen profession. It's how I make my living. And to fight, it's not popular to be for Israel, the only democratic state in the Middle East. I'm for a lot of unpopular things that get me on the bad side of my fandom. And I've lost tens of thousands of fans as a result of it. Now, in my business, losing people on social media can be the difference between getting a job or not getting a job. Literally now, a production company will look at your social media feed and see what it's all about and decide, well, I don't think that his social media is going in the right direction. I don't like the messaging on that social media, so we're just not going to, we're going to avoid the potential conflict with a very small percentage of nonetheless very loud people who make their voices heard and make themselves seem very large. Your career can be over by actually standing up for what is right. Now, not everybody has the stomach for that. A lot of people I know in Hollywood just either don't engage in that because they're afraid, and they don't want to affect their careers. I do it because I think I'm fighting for something long term that benefits me long term, even though it may not benefit me in the moment. And trust me, when you get a lot of pushback from thousands upon thousands of people, it doesn't make you feel great.
No.
And you have to rely on the fact that you are going for what's true when you are standing in the face of a wave, like a tidal wave of pushback.
Yeah. Alan Thomas says, actually, in America, support of Israel is just a polarizing issue. It's not that Israeli support is unpopular. Many support Israel. I agree, Alan, in America at large, but Mark is specifically talking about within the circles that he runs, such as in the supernatural fandom. In those arenas, support for Israel is very unpopular. In Hollywood, it's very unpopular.
1,000 actors just signed a petition against Israel, and they did it in 2014. Tons of A-list actors are coming out in favor of Palestine. They're wearing the red hand insignia, which is actually a reference to a murder of Palestinian people murdering two Jewish soldiers that accidentally wandered into their territory. They're wearing these pins at the Oscars. They're making moral statements about Israel and Palestine that are clearly in opposition to me. And they're the ones who have a great deal of power in the industry. Nobody's going to deplatformed them, or Susan Sarandon might have gotten de-agented for her overt pro-Palestinian behavior, but I turned down a job that she was in just recently, so she's not going to have any trouble working because she's Susan Sarandon. Look, I come from a world in Hollywood that is predominantly anti-Israel, and the fan base that likes the shows that I do are predominantly anti-Israel. So for me to stand for Israel in the face of, risking my career and risking the fan base like I do, because I think it's true, it's a tough thing to do. Trust me, I've had to make some hard choices, and I've decided to keep my integrity and say what I think, and lose a job if that's necessary. And I'm well off. It's not like but I don't have fuck you money. I'm well off, but I don't have fuck you money. It's not like I'm Elon Musk and
yeah. Well, I have fuck me money.
Yeah.
Is what I have. So we might be the only political show in the world where the commenters are in the on the side here talking about the photoelectric effect. I think that's what it is. Alan, tell me if I'm right when you're discussing light as both a particle and a wave. I think that's the photoelectric effect. I might be wrong. It's been a while since I read anything on physics, but nonetheless, we have that going on here in the comments. So you could get super smart here. You come here, you listen to us, you read the comments, you get educated. And you'll also learn the difference between fuck you money and fuck me money.
I just want to say thank you to Kat and Kaya and Nicole and Katrin. You guys are great fans. And you guys are, I'm not saying in the minority of Supernatural folks. I don't really, I know the majority of Supernatural fandom skews leftward, and those folks have decided that I'm on the right. And so they attack me. They even think I support Trump. Irrespective of how often I criticize the creepy son of a bitch, they still think that I support the guy, even though I've never voted for him, never will vote for him for any office, even the dog catcher. I'm somehow relegated to that because people like to box you into a category if they don't quite understand you.
Given that this is our show, I'm going to take a slight detour because it's a funny story.
Okay.
Parvis Magna says Yonatan Dion provides a gallant moral defense of Israel on Substack. So I was once doing a show for ARC UK with Yonatan Dion, and while I'm doing the show, the landlord at the house I was living, the doors were locked, so she decided to come through the bedroom window of the room I was in. Now, if this wasn't a stranger, this was my girlfriend's best friend. That was the landlord. But I'm there, doing the show, and all of a sudden I hear this crash coming through the window. I jumped. I said, "What the?" And I'm swearing and yelling, and he's there. Michael, are you okay? Are you okay? So I figure I'd share that as a funny little story.
Oh, that's nice.
You can always go back and see it. Just watch when I appeared with him on the ARC UK, and you'll get it. It's fun.
Was it just you and him?
It was just he and I. It was a daily objective.
Okay, fantastic. Building on Hayek, Hudson points out that there is a difference between the thick trust we have with families and friends and the thin trust we may build with strangers. Thin trust makes commercial society possible. Hudson writes that thin trust, quote, is generalizable trust, or the trust we place in the countless strangers we interact with every day. Thin trust lowers the transaction costs in our anonymous society and is built by our small acts of kindness and generosity towards strangers. What say you? I've never heard that concept before, thin trust, but I like the concept that it's sort of based on an agreement between us to be reasonable and to respect each other.
I haven't heard the phrase, but I will say this. Years ago, I went into this is before I was ever incarcerated. I went into a video store, not Blockbuster, a smaller, family-owned video store, I think. And I was talking to the guy that owned the place. And he told me that the entire business is based on trust. He said, really, if people won't bring back the videos they rent, there's nothing he could do about it. He says, I'm just going to lose out. He said, but people do it because they're trustworthy. Years later, when I was co-designing a program to help rehabilitate criminal offenders, one of the topics that we dealt with was trust. And the message that we tried to convey is you may have trust issues, but you still are trusting people. And what that would be is that thin trust he's talking about. For instance, if I go out to eat, I'm trusting that they're not going to poison my burger or spit in my burger or in some other way, mess with it. Or if I'm going to the car wash, that they're not going to scratch my car on purpose. I mean, there's all types of things. You walk down the street, you're trusting that people are not going to
swerve out of their lane and kill you.
Right. So we all engage in exercises in trust on a daily basis. So I like that concept. But if everybody goes uncivil, or even a vast majority of it, then that thin trust does go away.
See, it also puts me in tune with the idea that capitalism is based on virtue. Right? Like the regulatory state is premised on the idea that the individual left to his own devices is a bad guy. He's going to try to hurt you. He's going to try to rip you off. He's going to try to harm you, and that he will win doing that. Whereas capitalism understands that, no, he actually won't win doing that. In a free society, he's going to eventually lose. He may fool people for a period of time, but he's not going to fool people for long. If he poisons his food, if he has a bad product, people are going to get the wind of it, and they're going to ostracize the guy based on the fact that they don't want to exchange with somebody who's dishonest. Nobody really wants to exchange with somebody who's dishonest, folks. Nobody does.
No.
And so capitalism relies on reputation, and you build a reputation by producing values people want and doing it well. The regulatory state relies on political pull. And avoiding inspectors who come in. It actually incentivizes, in my view, criminality, cutting corners, being a bad guy, because your relationship with the customer now isn't based on reputation. It's based on whether you get that A rating by the bureaucrat who didn't see all the stuff he was supposed to see and puts that in your window. Then people automatically say, oh, this must be good because the USDA said it's so. Not even close, folks. A person in a capitalist society has to win your values by creating values that you want. And I haven't seen our friend come back with anything.
I have not, and it's kind of disappointing. I mean, I like, to have challenges. It's fine as long as it's done in a respectful manner. I think I do have, though, the title for today's show. It's from Alan Thomas, Physics, Puppies, and Philosophical Principles.
Yeah, my adopted daughter, she would like to see Frankie again, so I sort of have to put him up if you don't mind.
No, people are demanding it. Frankie is in high demand.
He's sitting next to me.
Hi, Frankie.
I had to rescue him because he broke out of his. I put him in his little bed with pillows surrounding him so he can't see over it, and he literally burst out of it in slow motion. He burst out of it and then started skating across our slippery floor. And he's so miserable on that floor. He doesn't know how to handle it. So I finally have to pick him up and put him in my chair with me. Oh, buddy, you always beat me up. Yeah,
Mark. Now I've been with Frankie, in hotel lobbies and restaurants and whatnot to do. Does everybody basically let you bring Frankie in wherever you go, or does anyone give you a hard time?
No,
I wouldn't think so. Frankie's great.
The only thing I like about Paris, as a matter of fact, is the fact that it's a pro-dog town, and I can take Frankie even into a Michelin star restaurant and sit him right there on my lap, and nobody says a thing about it.
Well, you just had to throw in that you get to go to Michelin star restaurants, didn't you, Mark? It just had to come out.
Hey, but I don't have fuck you money.
Well, let's, maybe we need to debate the concept a little bit of what fuck you money is, because if I'm dining at Michelin star restaurants with my dog in tow, I'm thinking I might have fuck you money. I'm just saying.
All right, maybe I do. I don't know. Maybe I don't. I'm going to leave that open. Now, where was I here? Well, we don't have to read any more of the article. We get the idea. You've posted the article, so now
I
people
did.
can read it on their own. I think it's a fantastic article. I think it just highlights once again that capitalism is a moral system based on virtue, that it promotes virtue, it incentivizes virtue, and that the other kind of state is based on incivility. Right, a regulatory state is based on the premise that humans are uncivil naturally, savages naturally, and have to be controlled from above in order to behave for the interests of the community. No, if you behave in your own rational self-interest, folks, you will be behaving in the interest of the community because it is virtuous. You'll be following virtues. You'll understand that in order to engage with society, you have to trade with other people. You can't take things from other people. You can't harm other people. You have to produce values that other people want. And that's how you become successful in the world. What were you laughing at?
Enric says, how about this title? FU/FM money. I thought that was great.
Yeah, that's good. That is good.
I'm actually thinking about buying the book that the article references. It looks like it's probably good.
I'm too, but I'm like 75 books. I have 75. Every time I'm like, I'm not going to buy another book until I complete this pile over here. I buy books before I complete the pile. So the piles build up.
Yeah, I sent you a copy of my book. You told me it was going in the queue. I thought the queue was maybe 3 books. Now I know it's 75 deep.
No. Yeah, the queue is at least 75 deep.
Oh, God.
We're not talking small. If Frankie weren't sitting on my lap right now, I'd reach around and show you a tome about 3 tomes this thick on the history of freedom and civilization. And I've got 10 volumes of Will Durant to get through. That's about 20 or 30,000 pages.
Oh, yeah.
Starting in Samaria and ending in sometime in World War II. So I've got a lot to get through, man.
Alan Thomas has a great observation here. Alan says, to the casual median observer, bringing a dog on a jet set lifestyle to Paris for Michelin meals appears to be fuck you money.
Yes, it does. But don't let appearances deceive you.
I just like having, if I have, cheeseburger money, I'm good. You're going to get a good burger.
Burgers are great, especially in a Michelin star restaurant.
I bet they are.
So speaking of Michelin stars, let's talk about Trump and his attack on the Federalist Party. I mean, we literally have like 2 minutes to talk about this article. But apparently Trump tapped Leonard Leo from the Federalist Party to advise him on jurists. He was appropriately advised and said, he was new to Washington. He didn't know how to pick judges. So he was pointed in the direction of the Federalist Society, which was correct. Hold on. I have to put Frankie down. He wants to get down. You're just
a very demanding dog you got there.
Well, he has dementia. So he's not demanding. He just gets randomly energetic and doesn't know what to do with it. So he was tapped. Leonard Leo was tapped by the Trump administration to help him fill out some of these circuit courts and probably helped him with the Supreme Court picks. And now that the courts are actually turning against Trump and actually saying that his he's not even legislation, but his edicts are unconstitutional, he's turned against the Federalist Society and against Leonard Leo himself, saying he's a terrible person who's anti-American.
In his own way, whatever the hell that means.
In his own way, whatever the hell that means. What it means is Trump equates his own feelings, as every malignant narcissist does, with reality. So if he doesn't like you, you must be against reality. As far as Trump is concerned, he's the standard of all reality. And so he's going to try to appoint jurists now that want to push through the MAGA agenda. They don't have a particular loyalty to the Constitution of the United States, but they have a loyalty to him. And he's pushing the conservative movement and Republicans in that direction as well. Now, I said, and there's an article on it in 2016, my friend, that Trump was going to kill the Republican Party. And thus far, he's killed everything that made the Republican Party halfway decent to begin with. Their originalist stance on the Constitution, their protection of private property, their lame but nonetheless sort of defense of capitalism,
pro-free trade,
pro-free trades, pretend. It was pretend, but that was their ostensible premise. He is destroying all of that. He's destroyed all of that for a kind of populism. And now all that matters is the Democrats are trying to respond to that by finding a way into that populism, not by aligning themselves with moral principles of liberty, but with finding ways to demagogue the public into believing that their particular scheme is the scheme that they should follow. This is what's happening to the Republican Party now, folks, because of Trump. And that's why there's a third party out there that can replace the grand old party. And that's the American Capitalist Party. Go to them, americancapitalistparty.org. Make sure you hit the like button, because right now Michael is going to give us the capitalist thought of the day, because I gave it yesterday.
You did. But first of all, we are as opposed to the GOP, we are the BNP, the brand new party.
Yes.
We've got to popularize that. And Alan says back to destroying the duopoly. Yes, Alan.
Hey, before we get into your capitalist thought of the day, I just want to say something out loud that I taunt the commies every day. The American Communist Party, I think, is an evil institution, and it's led by evil folks. But one of their guys, their Midwestern leader, who is a Division I wrestler, has decided to comment on my comment that none of these guys have ever read Misesian Economics or the Austrian Economist. He's written an essay. I doubt he wrote it. I think he probably had Noah's help doing it, because, as I said, he probably hasn't read it without Haas or Noah helping him. And Michael is going to respond to him, and we're going to have a little bit of a Twitter war at some point today. I think you guys should be tuned in for that, because I think it's going to be very interesting. So, sorry, man. Give me your capitalist thought for the day.
Oh, I want to just see how many likes we have. We actually have far more than that. We have 28 likes so far. That's a good start. Let's get them going. My capitalist thought of the day is this: just because something's immoral doesn't mean that it should be illegal. But the flip side of that is, just because something's legal doesn't mean it's moral. We as a people ought to be able to govern ourselves. We shouldn't need authorities or anybody else telling us how we should or shouldn't behave. As adults, we need to discover a rational morality and behave accordingly. But even in the absence of discovering a full system of morality, we are all capable of being civil to one another. We know what civility means. We don't have to run around insulting people, calling people names, or, bumping into people on the street without saying, excuse me. We can be decent people, and we need to be decent people. We need to advocate for capitalism, and the free society only works amongst the moral people. And with that, Mark, I turn it back over to you, and you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, thanks, folks. I read an article today, not necessarily the most interesting stuff in the world, but I thought the article was so important that you should hear most of it. I read about 3/4 of it. You can get the rest of it on X. Michael tweeted it out there, but I think it's valuable for everybody to not only read that article, but repost it, get it out there in the world so that people can see it. We have to start changing minds, folks. We have to take back our moral agency. You are the kings and queens of your own castles. Don't let these people take that away from you. So we're going to be here same time tomorrow, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern. And we're going to be talking about the news or whatever strikes our fancy. I'm hoping that guy that threw out that insult comes back tomorrow with an actual plan, an actual argument, instead of just saying this is bullshit and then moving on, because I'd like to see what exactly his alternatives are. I reckon since we haven't heard from him, they're not that good. But hopefully he'll come back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern. And until tomorrow, folks, always remember to check your premises. See ya.